Hey everybody, TheAngryHoneyBadger here, and in today's video we'll be taking a look at the Donger. At the start of this video we'll discuss his abilities and maxing order, then we'll go over his runes and his masteries, followed by counters both good and bad, and champion synergies. Finally we'll look at the items you want to consider purchasing on him when you play him, and then finally we'll look at his pros and his cons. Be sure to like and subscribe if you find this video helpful, but for now let's take a look at Heimerdinger, the revered inventor.
Go around the badger.
As for Heimerdinger's abilities, let's start off with his passive. Heimerdinger gives nearby allied turrets and champions increased health regeneration. As for Heimerdinger's Q ability, this is his H28G evolution turret. We'll put a point into this at level 1, and I actually like to max this out first. Heimerdinger lays down a rapid fire cannon turret equipped with a secondary pass-through beam attack. Heimerdinger's turrets will deal magic damage, and you can have a maximum of 3 of them down once you have enough points in your queue. At level 2, I typically will put a point into my W ability. This is my Hextech Micro Rocket. Heimerdinger fires long-range rockets that converge onto the cursor's location. At level 3, I'll put a point into his E ability, CH2 Electron Storm Grenade. I'll be maxing this out last. Heimerdinger lobs a grenade at a location, dealing damage to any enemies hit, as well as stunning anyone directly hit and slowing surrounding units. And as for Heimerdinger's ultimate, this is Upgrade, which has a unique effect for each of your other abilities. Essentially, upgrading your Q ability is used for fights that are in spaces where everyone will be kited around your turret so you can deal consistent damage. If you use the upgraded effect on your Rocket Swarm, this is usually used for Burst. And if you're going to be upgrading your E for a fight, this was mostly going to be used for Engage and Disengage, when you'll be able to bounce, stun, and slow enemies in an area. As for his rune page, I like to take magic penetration marks, health per level seals, magic resist glyphs, and ability power quintessences. As for his masteries page, I recommend taking 2109. 21 in the offensive tree, focusing on damage, and 9 in the utility tree. The first counter we'll take a look at is Syndra. Heimerdinger's turrets can easily be dealt with by Syndra because she can just pick them up and throw them out of lane. She can even do this on his upgraded turret. She also has spammable poke with her Q and can get rid of the turrets too. Next is Ziggs. With substantial range, dealing with turrets is easy, and he has his empowered auto attacks too, which is good for dealing with them. Similar to Syndra, Ziggs' Satchel Charge can also disperse turrets too. And finally there's Xerath. There's very little reason for a turret to ever hit Xerath. He has crazy good range. Heimer can be good at pushing against Xerath early, but then he usually can deal with the pressure and clear pretty quick himself. As for champions that Heimerdinger does well against, let's start out with Kassadin. Shoving minions into turret over and over early can be very challenging for Kassadin to last hit. By the time he wants to start diving onto you, just stick around your turrets and let them do the work. Next is Katarina. She can poke at you a little bit, but she can't usually fully clear your turrets without committing, and she'll end up taking damage. You can also cancel her ult with your E if she decides to jump on you, and at that point you'll be able to stop her instantly and then have all of your turrets deal damage to her. And finally there's Akali. Akali, like most melee champions, does not want to sit inside all of your turret's damage or within the range of it. When she decides to roam, punish her by pushing in her turret and increase your farm lead. You'll be able to push down the lane fast. As for champions that synergize well with Heimerdinger, those include Blitzcrank, Thresh, Braum, Skarner, and Amumu. Any champions that help slow or lock down targets within range of your turret is a huge asset. There are plenty of champions that do this, but these are a few that work really well for doing it. As for the items I like to take when I play as Heimerdinger, at level 1 I usually start with a Doran's Ring and health pots. It's a pretty standard start and it works pretty well. My first trip back to base, I will honestly, almost regardless of my lane matchup, will be going for a Zhonya's Hourglass. And the reason behind this is, once we finish this item off, we can decide to fight anybody, and when they decide to inevitably gank you, because most people try to get rid of Heimerdinger, you can start to fight them, kite them around your turrets, and then go into stasis with Hourglass, letting your turrets just sit there and free hit them. By the time you come out of stasis, they're probably going to be dead, and you can probably clean up the kill if they're trying to get away. It works really well all of the time. The next item I usually go for after that, besides getting my magic penetration boots at some point, which I get fairly early on, I will begin to pick up a Rylai's Crystal Scepter. The same thing applies. It can kite them, it gives you good health to sustain yourself, so when you sit inside your turrets, they keep kiting them because they're slowed, then you can rely on your Zhonyas, and then they're slowed and stuck inside your turrets. You just create a death ball of turret damage when you play Heimerdinger this way, so you get the Zhonyas and the Rylai's early. After that point, You usually are starting to hurt a little bit with a little bit of mana regeneration. If you did do a Athene's early, you could do that if you wanted to, but at this point, I like to pick up a Morellonomicon. You get some good ability power, you get some cooldown reduction, and importantly, you get the passive with some mana regeneration as well on the item. At this point, I'd say you have your 4 core items, including your boots. The next item I like to pick up is actually a Void Staff for the penetration. Heimerdinger has okay scaling, but realistically, the penetration will go a lot further. The Void Staff is also cheaper, and you can get to this item quicker, and therefore it's a little bit more effective on him. And finally, for your last item, you technically have 3 choices. I would either get an Abyssal Scepter for the resists and the damage, or you can pick yourself up the death cap if you really want to, but another great one to round things out with that I like to pick up is going to be the Liandry's Torment. It's going to synergize very well, give you more health, give you more pen, and give you really good damage at a good price with its reworked stat line. Moving on to his pros and cons, let's start off with his pros. He's an amazing split pusher. He's very difficult to gank. You can just stick to your turrets and let him kill people. He has lots of utility. He is great at leashing. Just put a turret down and help that leash completely for any jungler. And he's good at setting up traps. As for his cons, placing turrets in bad locations can mean 0 damage. Typically overextended since he pushes a lot, so you gotta be careful. He is dependent on his turrets in almost every single way. Junglers will gank you a lot, that is a downside, they will be attracted to killing you, and sometimes he's hard to utilize in a team fight depending on where they're breaking out. And as for my personal thoughts on Heimerdinger, I think he's an interesting champion. I don't think he's neither amazing or bad. He's really good at split pushing, and he does things in lane very well, like pushing in people and keeping them under because of this. Now, that's a great thing, but the problem is, like I said in his cons, he's difficult to utilize all the time in team fights. Whether or not you have all your turrets available is part of it, whether or not you're split pushing somewhere else on the map, it's just, sometimes it doesn't work. Now, if you show up to objectives with your team and you set up a defensive turret perimeter, or you set them up to fight objectives, as long as your team knows to fight around Heimerdinger and his turrets, you should win just about every team fight with your team. His turrets, as much as people will sometimes kill them in a fight, just means that leaves you time to kill them with the rest of the, like your teammates. But if they decide to ignore your turrets, all you need to do is live through the fight, and with Hourglass and plenty of health on these damaging AP items, you're gonna do that. So fighting around Heimerdinger is important, but he might be somewhere else off the map pushing. Heimerdinger will never probably see a lot of competitive play just because he never really fits a specific role well, but in his current state, just in general, Heimerdinger is a strong champion and has actually had a very high win rate for a long time. So if you're interested in playing him in solo queue, he can actually work out fairly well. I hope that this building guide helps you if you're looking to play some of the Donger in the future, but other than that, good luck on the fields of justice. I'll see you in the next build video.